Hello, welcome to IC Show TV. This is Paul Milligan at IC 2018. Welcome to another of our panel discussions. This one today is looking at the distribution channel and how that works across one country to many countries. And here with me are three people who are have seen the distribution businesses expand over many countries. I think between the three of them we've pretty much got the whole world covered. So at the end there is Syed Wahab from Mindstec, Innovation Awards winner the other night, so congratulations for that. In the middle is Kevin Kelly from Stampede, I'm sure many of you know. And at the end we have Maverick, a very well-known name, and joining them is Joel Chimoindes. So welcome, Joel, thank you. So first question really, what are the challenges in expanding a distribution business from one country to many? Joel, do you want to maybe kick us off?
I think there's two different levels of challenges as far as I can see, at least two different levels. The first level is really around a transactional piece, and that's making sure that logistically, compliantly, with tax as well, that we make sure that we can satisfy the needs in that local country. And I think that's never underestimated, and it's often some of the biggest challenges that we find. The second thing is clearly one around expertise, and depending on the solutions that we're selling in those countries, is making sure that we have the right level of expertise in those countries. And I think one part of it is making sure that we also have, we often talk about the McDonald's example, in the sense that McDonald's are clearly a global organisation and they have a central and international strategy. But locally you have little differences. So in Germany, McDonald's have beer. We don't have McDonald's having beer in the US. And we have to take note of those little differences in culture, in country, when we're expanding as well.
Sure. Kevin, you guys, you were saying before the video was rolling, you were listing the kind of regions that you're in. It's a kind of extraordinary list. What are the challenges for you guys in spreading around like that?
We expanded through acquisition, and so that has its own natural challenges, because as you're integrating a new company into an existing company, there's always the evolution of a culture, and it's frankly on both sides of that equation. It's we go through a cultural change, if you will, going from one region to a multi-region company, and there's dynamic that occur at the headquarter level. And then secondly, for the company that we acquired in those regions, as we bring new products and new categories to them, there's an evolution of what they need to be able to do. And so it's an exciting time for us as we go through that change, but it's changed nonetheless.
Sure. Yeah. Syed, how have you found the challenges of moving from one country to many?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges have been common in what both of them said, but we cater to actually the most difficult part of the world, right? Whether it's China, Philippines, South Africa, then of late into Brazil. I think the main thing that we have understood is in many of the places we started from ground up. So first and foremost, to find the right people who understand technology to run the business for us, then be able to understand the difficulties of regulations in terms of customs, in terms of sending money in and out of those countries, in terms of this thing. That has been the biggest challenge and a learning curve for us. And as we spread from Asia to the Latin America, now we're coming across so many challenges. I think that is a big difference between operating out of established countries and then moving out to remote countries.
I mean, I probably know the answer to this really, but I thought it'd be sort of cheeky and ask it anyway. I mean, does one size fit all, Joel? Do you find that from country to country?
I don't think one size does fit all. No, I think going back to my previous example, I think there are things that are clearly very common amongst countries, but you have to take account local cultures, actually some local technology trends as well. I think that's really important. And I think if you don't do that, then I think it can be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Kevin, do you have one model, or is it kind of?
Well, we have one overarching business model, but really at the end of the day, it's a global strategy with local execution, and there's nuances that John has been describing that absolutely exist in each individual region. So even if you take one program and want to roll it out worldwide, you're going to modify it based upon some of the nuances, and that's really what it boils down to. And so we think globally from a strategic level, and then act locally and modify things.
Yeah. So, Syed, how do you have a model that you repeat from country to country, or do they differ?
Yeah, I think we tried implementing that, but what we noticed is like some of our product lineups are meeting room products, collaboration and stuff like that. What we have noticed is the way end users use meeting rooms in one country doesn't have to be the same way how end users use in a different country. And what we have learned is from Africa to parts of Asia to Middle East, people use the same technology but in a different way. So the selling concept in terms of solution selling needs to be catered to that. And that is where the big challenge is, because people just go out and say this is the product, this is what the features, and most of the regions we notice that features utilized in one region might not be efficient in the other region.
May I comment on that? It's interesting actually, in some places we see now the reverse of that, which is the fact that with big global rollouts, that actually big corporates actually just want to see one of 3 or 4 different options from a catalogue for a room, and that's it. And actually that local deviation can actually just cause more problems at a technology level. So we see some really successful partners of ours who have perhaps just 3 configurations, and that's all they then offer to those companies, and it keeps it very simple for them as well.
I mean, how long do you give yourselves to become established in each country or a new country or new territory? Do you have a set time frame that you think we will give ourselves?
See, as business people, I think we want to set up or have the setup done as early as possible. But every market has its own issues, right? Probably we are looking at for us actually we are looking at between 6 months to a 2-year this thing, which needs, because most of the local dealer channel requires someone. They've seen companies in and out of this thing coming in, wrapping up and going back. So just to get their interest that we are here to stay and this is who we are, it takes time to get into the market. Get to understand them, make sure that we are there to support them. The biggest problem in the solution selling on this thing is the local support, right? So selling the concept and the technology easy part, but to set up the support structure, the training concept, right? Get into the end user to be able to sell new solutions. Because most of the places that we found in the areas that we are catering to, for example, I'll give you an example. In many of the countries, still the interactivity and collaborative, the end users are not even aware because the dealers have never promoted it, right? And the dealers have traditionally gone with the standard tender BOQ that comes out, they just bid for it and they get the job. So what we are finding difficult in many countries is end users are not aware of how international, whether in US or Europe, how technologies have changed, how efficient the technologies have become. And that's the bigger part that we are facing in some countries.
Kevin, how long do you guys give yourself to become established in a new territory or country?
You know, we've expanded primarily through acquisition, and so we're buying established companies. But the reality of it is that we are evolving those companies to match the portfolio that we're selling elsewhere in the world.
In theory, that should speed up that process, though, of becoming established, because they've already been in that market for.
They're established for what they were doing, and then we're working on the cultural and product change.
And Joel, is that the same for Maverick?
I guess kind of. I think that, acquisition. As you said in the first question, acquisition is integrating a business is a difficult thing to do, right? And the cultural pieces as well, and that can take a year or two to absolutely get right. Depends on how, in other ways of establishing ourselves. If it's around executing in a new country, again, from a business plan and the investments, that's a year to a 2-year process as well. So,
I just back to something that was mentioned earlier on. I just wonder if any of you guys had maybe a short example of the cultural differences, maybe between, you said about how people work and stuff. Do you have any examples maybe that you can share of something that you noticed from maybe one country to another in terms of working practices?
I think there's a lot of difference between, looking at our offices across, the way employees or staff work in the Middle East office, for example, is not the same in South Africa, not the same in India. And when I have a serious problem, when I go to those offices, I need to tone this thing down to be able to cater to the local, how they would understand me. There are certain, words that I use, and I'm very careful in using that because they feel very sensitive about people from outside. So that's that big learning curve as we go along.
Kevin, have you noticed any kind of big cultural differences in?
Well, it's funny. I think it starts somewhat on the regulatory side, where you have different statutory days, and so some of our employees in one office may have 10 or 15 more days off than others, and I won't share which office is the which, but there's noticeable differences in requirements, and that also produces a slightly different operating environment given those requirements. And so you have to be flexible and maintain your overall strategy while accommodating those local regulations.
Joel, have you noticed any kind of slight cultural differences maybe from country to country?
You know, I think technology has a part to play in that, in the sense that we encourage remote working an awful lot. We encourage productivity platforms like Microsoft Teams to be used. But actually, if you don't have the connectivity in the country for guys to be able to remote work, as an example, then everyone comes together a lot more into physical locations. And that does create a different dynamic with teams than it does if you're remote working a lot of the time as well.
Onto the final question I have for today. Are local people vital to the success of starting a business in a new territory? Syed, maybe start with you. Is that important?
I think definitely.
Or would you prefer to maybe bring in your own people from the head office? Or
so it's always good to have your people there, at least someone who is monitoring. But I think the local people are the key to success in that region. Most of the local, if you have people from outside, first and foremost, the local dealers won't trust them.
Okay.
Right? But having local people and hiring them locally who know the in and out of the markets and how it works, that is definitely beneficial. I don't think without that any business in any expansion would ever work.
And then would you oversee from afar or from the HQ maybe?
Yes, definitely. We have processes in place where we are monitoring and we are reviewing the situation every week, monthly sort of thing. But still the local people are the key of how this operations work.
Kevin, how key is that for you guys to get a business up and running?
Oh, no question. I mean, local people are the key, period. We do, from time to time, move someone from headquarters to help with some of the cultural changes within an organization. The way Stampede operates may be slightly different than the company we acquired, which was Just Lamps. And so that's helped. But by all means, the success is solely on the backs of every local person. Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting point you raised there, actually. When you're acquiring a company, there is possibly, sometimes is there a big kind of cultural shift, or is it mostly a small, because Joey, I'm guessing you have that as well, is it sometimes mostly small, or is it sometimes going to be quite big?
Well, I think sometimes it's expectation, and sometimes it's more mental shift, and so or mind shift, and that is probably bigger than you would estimate, just simply because of the nature of the business that we're in and what we have to do to be successful. Is a little bit different than what the company we had purchased was doing, right? And so that's the element of change that you have to work your way through, and people, based upon their personalities, will work through that change at different rates of speed. Some folks, they're there right away. Some folks need a little more time.
Joe, how key are local people to setting up new Maverick offices?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with obviously my two colleagues here, which is that we often say we're a people business before we're a technology business, right? And I think that's absolutely crucial that we have the local people. The reality is, our industry is actually quite a small industry, right? And people know people. And that's what's really important. And I think that the moment that we lose that, then actually we're in a pretty bad shape. So making sure we have people that understand people locally is incredibly important.
Gents, thanks for a great discussion. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.